one of the biggest things when it comes to fishing is ultimately what we like to do is we like to catch. And you know, doing that on a pond or some small body of water is pretty easy to break down the body of water. But when you're on a big reservoir, you know, like something like what we are here, you know, it can be overwhelming of finding the fish. And you know, there's certain times of the year where the fish are really concentrated, and once you find that particular cove or hot spot, it's fairly easy. But until you find, you know, finding that is the hard part. And you know, a guy can come into a bay like this, and you start looking around, and it all looks good, and believe me, it's not all good. And you know, certain lakes might be, but you know, ultimately, you know, you've got to find the sweet spots in here. And you know, like on this big bay here, there might only be a couple sweet spots. So if I come into a bay like this and come in here and just, you know, flip real slow and fish methodically through this whole cove, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to have covered much water. And you know, if the fish are scattered out and hard to find, you can waste a lot of time. So you know, when I'm deciphering a new body of water, I like to cover water fast. You know, if I got a particular sweet spot where I feel like there's a fish in there, I can pitch it in there and fish it real slow. But what I can also do is I can throw this thing out there and I can just swim it real fast and you know, trigger kind of what we call those reaction strikes, and allows me to keep that trolling motor, keep that boat moving, and cover a lot of water. You know, I don't care, it can be the greatest lake in the world. You've got your good spots and you've got spots that aren't good. And, you know, there's a saying that 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water. That is so true, and especially in a big body of water. You know, 90% of the stuff you fish isn't going to have fish in it. So, you know, me being a tournament fisherman, I've got to spend the majority of my time in that 10% of the water. And, you know, that's the hardest part of our sport, is trying to decipher what that 10% is. Like I said, in an area like this, you know, it can just be overwhelming. You know, if you look at a grass bed, you'd think, well, they're just going to be everywhere in this grass, and that's not true. You know, you've really got to learn how to pick a piece of grass, you know, or a grass bed apart, or whatever type of cover it is. And you know, the one thing about a grass bed is there's, like I said, there's sweet spots. You know, you're going to have your edges. You know, a lot of times, especially in active fish, they're going to be right on the edge. You know, and just going along, you know, just concentrating on that first 3 or 4 feet of the edge is, you know, sometimes a really good thing to do. But there's times where the fish might be pretty lethargic, and, you know, middle of the day, they might want to get really tight to the heaviest part of the cover, where here you've got really sparse grass. I've got a spot like right here that the grass is a lot thicker, that's, you know, a lot more shade there. So, you know, the fish might be really concentrated on those shaded spots. So, you know, that's where I want to really, you know, focus on those little shade spots, you know, those little tight spots. So, you know, it's determining which ones are the right places at the right time. It might be, you know, the fish might be in the bushes, you know, might not even be in the grass, they might just be in the bushes. So the quicker a person can realize that, you know, the quicker they can go through here then, once they've kind of determined that, you know, hey, the fish they're in the bushes or they're in the grass. You know, sometimes they're going to be in everything, and that's when it's easy. But, you know, that's not what we're about. We're, you know, about finding the, you know, the stuff that's hard, the hard stuff, and the stuff that separates the pros from the weekend anglers. You know, there's going to be times, you know, I look at this row of bushes here, and you know, the one that really stands out to me is this one out on the end that's kind of, you know, it creates a little point. It's a little bit better ambush spot than, you know, the whole rest of this edge. You know, probably one of the biggest things I've learned, you know, very rarely are the fish going to be way back just in the middle of that stuff. Like I said, unless they're pretty lethargic, the majority of those fish are going to be on these ambush spots. You know, the thing that stands out to me along this stretch is here's this isolated willow tree right out in front. So, you know, I'm definitely going to pick this willow tree apart because, one, it's a really good ambush site, and two, willow trees just seem to be bass magnets. And, You know, sometimes that's where they're going to be relating to. So once you determine that, that's when you really need to start, you know, focusing more on where you got those bites and why.